Hey guys, we just want to share with you a devotional, and it's out of Hebrews 12, 1 and 2, and Kelly's going to read it for you.
Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. That's a whole lot right there, but I want to go back and focus on where he says, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. So I looked up the word hindrance in Greek, and it means a tumor, a mass, a weight, or a burden. And I think at one time or another we've all had a hindrance in our life that became a burden to us. So we have sin in our life, but we also have these hindrances. And sometimes these hindrances can become so heavy and weigh us down that we do not want to keep moving. And some of these hindrances are, and I brought some weights as illustrations because, this is 5 pounds and I've got 2 pounds, but we're going to talk about different things that can weigh you down in life. And one of them is grief. The grief of a loved one that you just can't get past. You just feel burdened and you feel heavy all the time. And then you have anxiety. Anxiety it traps you. You feel like you're stuck and you don't want to leave your house. You feel like you can't get beyond where you're at. And then I wrote down a toxic relationship. When God has told you to let go, but you continue to hang on to this toxic relationship. And for me, I can speak about that. It took me years to get past the toxic relationship, but through that, that relationship, God gave me grace, and he allowed me to stumble and fall, and I got back up, and I was ready to get back on that track and run toward the Lord, but there were times that it stopped me in my tracks, and it pulled me away, so I wasn't having that sweet fellowship with the Lord anymore. It had become a hindrance in my life. And so what does Paul say? He says to throw off these hindrances. And we have to go to the Lord. He is never going to leave us nor forsake us. He tells us that. And the Lord is going to always provide a way out. He tells us that in his word. So we come back to the Lord and we get back in his scripture, right? And then you are able to then pick up whatever battle it is, and you can run that race with perseverance.
That's so good, Kelly. The part of scripture that I want to talk about is, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus. What does this mean to run with perseverance? It's to have unwavering endurance, to run with consistency. This is a person that's running with a purpose. They're more concerned about the prize than they are about the pain and suffering. When I think about running with endurance, I think about my son Samuel and his cross-country race. He was so excited to be able to run, and so they're at the starting line. He's getting excited. They do the gun, and he takes off, and he's running with every part of his body as fast as he can. So he goes around the corner. I see him holding his side, and his facial expressions you could tell he was in pain of what happens when you run. As he goes up the hill, I see him fall over or trip over something, but then he gets back up. So as we run as parents to the finish line to meet him, we see him come around the corner, and he is completely covered from head to toe with mud. He has no shoes on. We don't know what happened to the shoes, but he finishes the race. I think a lot of times as Christians, we start out strong, but then something happens that causes pain in our life. Do we do we take that time and do we fix our eyes on Jesus, or do we get stressed out and anxiety and worry and try to fix it with our own power? You see, the fight of faith is not done in your own strength. Life is hard. Life is really hard. I know from my own personal experiences, having a loved one that was diagnosed with cancer, uncertain about their future and their health, having a child that gets a bad diagnosis and you just feel helpless as a parent, not knowing what to do. I've experienced losing my job before, not knowing how we're going to make ends meet, like how we're going to pay our bills or feed our kids. And also I've experienced health problems of my own and realizing the effects that has on our family. I think back at the day that Samuel crossed that finish line, covered with the mud, with no shoes on, but he finished the race. Running a race is hard. Do we run with perseverance? Do we fix our eyes on Jesus? He is our ultimate prize. When I look back at my own race that Christ has marked out for me, I see how he was refining my faith. I see that there was a purpose for the pain that I had in my life. I see how he grew me as a Christian and grew me in my journey with him. I also can see how that Jesus creates and perfects our faith.
That's awesome. I love it. All right, that next part says, for the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame. Jesus knew exactly what was coming after the cross, and he set that joy before him. His focus was on what was next. It wasn't on the pain that he was enduring. It wasn't on the shame or the embarrassment that was associated with being crucified. It was on what was next. He knew that he was about to be back in the presence with his Father. And not only that, he had fulfilled his mission, and he was taking all of us with him. So he knew what was coming next. There was a joy set before him. And then it says, and he sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. There's so much meaning packed into that little verse. But to sum it up, it's finished. The battle's done. Satan's defeated. He is a defeated enemy. If you belong to Jesus, Satan no longer has any hold whatsoever on you. There are so many of us that walk around in life with anxiety and with worry and with all of this stuff that we've talked about that weighs us down, that slows us down and hinders our race. And we have to every day intentionally pick up our cross, follow Jesus, and endure and run that race that God's marked out for us, because we know how the story ends. We've got to run to the prize. So guys, we want to leave you with some questions to think about this week. 1, what is hindering you from fully running the race that God's marked out for you? 2, would you say that you're still in your race? Or have you tripped up? Have you fell? Has something happened to cause you to get off course and maybe you're not running the race that God had marked out for you to begin with? And 3, do you live like you believe the battle is won? Or is there something that you're holding on to that you need to nail to the cross?
That's so good, Kat. So we just want to challenge you guys again to memorize Hebrews 12, 1 and 2, and just really take that time to just meditate, have some time with the Lord, and just really search your heart and search where you are with your relationship with Christ. And just thank you guys so much for joining us. Bye.
See ya.